Welcome, everybody. So, my name is Al Rodenburg, and we're dealing with a very timely subject being mindful in the midst of chaos. So, each one of us has a host of stresses that we deal with at work, at home, in our relationships, in our own heads. This event is a place for you to consider new ways to handle the stress in a mentally healthy way with mindfulness and self care. Well, you've probably heard of both these terms. You may not be completely familiar with them. So before we move on, let's define them. Mindfulness, the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. Self care, the regulatory function which is under individual control and is deliberate and self initiated. When it comes to being self aware and in control of your mental health, mindfulness and self care go hand in hand. Before you start taking steps to control the way your mind reacts to chaos and difficult situations, it's important to learn how to be conscious of the chaos and how it affects you. Then you can take measures to mend or to redirect your cognitive process. Historically, we haven't, as a society, been taught to give our mental health the attention it deserves. As a result, we've learned to sweep aside issues under the rug, grin and bear it through toxic relationships, overload our busy schedules because we're afraid to say no. Whether we're born into families with difficult people or we find our way to them through friendships, partners, or coworkers, it's challenging to know how to best respond to someone who brings negativity and unhappiness into our lives. One of the first things you can do is to realize that behaviors being presented to or reflected at you are not your fault. The way that others cope with their feelings is part of their mental health and is not a reflection of who you are. Consider how differently two people might react to breaking a drinking glass. One person might throw a fit, while the other might calmly pick up the pieces and move on. Each is a reflection of the person's mental well being and ability to cope with their own feelings. One of the most important aspects of being mindful in the midst of chaos is taking measures to eliminate as much of the chaos as possible. Oftentimes, the source of chaos and negativity comes with the people we choose to surround ourselves with. While we can't control every interaction we have, when it comes to our regular interactions, it's our job to develop firm and clear boundaries about what we will and won't tolerate. Whether it's a gossipy coworker, overly critical family member, toxic romantic relationship, eliminating interactions with people who bring down your good energy will leave room for more positive energy to enter. Not all friendships are meant to last forever, and that's fine. While you shouldn't casually discard friendships over minor arguments or inconveniences, you should grant yourself permission to move on from relationships that no longer nourish and support you. If you feel exhausted just by the idea of hanging out with someone, it's probably a sign that you should move on. Friends are hard to part ways with, but family members are even harder. One of the best recommendations I can offer is to set limits on the amount of time you wish to spend interacting with toxic people. Make sure to keep any conversation positive, pleasant, and focused on that person. By keeping the focus of conversations on them, you're purposefully keeping yourself safe from unwanted drama while maintaining the relationship if that's what you want to do. You have a relationship with everyone you've ever had an interaction with. That relationship can last just a moment, a lifetime, or anything in between. In each relationship, you cross paths and learn from one another. And since each of us are on different paths, you might only be walking side by side for a little while. You also might cross paths later on. Understand that throughout your life, there will be many people who you meet, love, and learn from, and that ultimately you play a role in determining how long you walk along a certain path. In order to cut down on chaos in your life, you've got to make it a priority to keep your plate filled with the right amount of work that your mental health can handle. Many times, this means learning how to say no. Sure, you might feel guilty the first few times you turn down the people who ask you for favors, but it will get easier with time. As you practice, remind yourself why you're saying no. Offer those reasons to the person if you feel comfortable doing so. And remember that it's by saying no, you're in turn saying yes to things that you do want to spend your energy and time on because there's not enough time to do it all. We've all sat through awkward and draining interactions, yet the line between being polite and saving yourself from the stress of staying too long can be a difficult one to draw. Here's a tip: spending 5 minutes chatting with a person is polite, 10 minutes is more than enough. Any longer than that, and you have every right to excuse yourself. However, if you feel that you're in danger, or if the person is acting racist, misogynistic, or obscene, just say, "Excuse me, I've got to go," and walk away. Now that we've covered all the ways to eliminate excessive external stress and chaos in your life, I'd like to take a moment to remind you how important it is to keep people close who you love and support you. For many of us, it can feel as though there is no one who fits into this category. If this is the case for you, consider reaching out to support groups for people who share the same interests as you, whether in person or virtually. Any positive connections you can curate will help bring peace to your mind. We're done talking about other people. Now let's focus on you and your space. If you've ever watched a home makeover show, you know how much a physical space can impact mental well being. From a cluttered bedroom to a poorly lit office, the spaces that you spend time in directly impact our psychological health. My three favorite ways to make a space feel better: ditch the clutter, add more light, and adopt a plant. While you're refreshing your space, bring in colors, pictures, quotes, and anything else that brings you a little bit of joy when you look at it. If you're at a loss for where to start, try creating a mood board filled with the pictures of things that catch your eye throughout the day. Walk through a fun furniture store or create a Pinterest collection. One of my favorite ways to curate positivity is to spread it. Take the time out each day to do something kind for someone, compliment a stranger, or just share a smile. Do yourself, do you find yourself being judgmental towards others? Next time you catch yourself throwing shade, pause and shift your thoughts into something positive about the person or situation. We are our own worst critics, and after decades of bullying ourselves, obviously our mental health takes a toll. Next time you look in the mirror or start thinking destructive thoughts, stop and list out a few things you're grateful for. There are a lot of ways that we can start creating a world around us that brings positivity and pushes negativity away. But stress will find a way to creep in. When that happens, focus on your breathing, slow it down, and try to mimic the sound of waves, slow and steady, with a brief pause between inhales and exhales. Exercise is great for the body, and if you want to take an extra step to connect the body and mind, yoga is definitely something you should try because yoga practice focuses so heavily on the breath, the asanas or movements, poses, turn the whole practice into a kind of moving meditation, which is proven to combat stress. If yoga is not your thing, that's okay. Find something that serves as an outlet to focus your mind in the present moment that you can turn to when you're feeling stressed, whether it's cooking, crafting, coloring, petting a cat, tending to a garden, or a house plant, taking the time in your day to bring your mind away from anxiety and back to the present moment is what mindfulness is all about. While it's important to learn ways to cope with stress, your goal shouldn't be to distract yourself. Instead, find ways to release your thoughts, worries, and anxieties. If you have the means to connect with a mental health professional, do so. Otherwise, try writing your thoughts in a journal. Getting them out of your mind and into solid thoughts will help you gain some new perspective. Speaking of journaling, one of the best ways to train your brain to think more positively is to practice gratitude regularly. Gratitude rewires our brain so we become more likely to focus on the positives in the world than the negatives. We're not going to become ignorant of danger if we appreciate the positives for a little while, but we will become more open to the good. As we come to the end of our time together, I've saved the most important piece of advice for last. Dedicate time to learn how to love yourself. Sometimes the best way to practice self love is to learn how to enjoy your own company. So take yourself out to a movie or dinner, or possibly a solo trip. Once you learn how to love and cherish yourself and your worth, everything else will fall into place. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time, and I know that your energy will become positive. So we've reached the end of this event, but it's just the beginning of your journey toward a more positive, mindful life. If you have any questions, concerns, or would like additional information about any of the topics we discussed, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And you can reach me at alrodenburg@gmail.com or al@alrodenburg.com. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye now.